All right. So this is I'm going to share something with you that you don't know. Look at this incredible group of speakers we have today. I mean, come on. You know, up until 2 weeks ago, I didn't know if we were going to get a lot of discussion about work because I couldn't find great people who wanted to get on the stage and talk about it. Some of it was scheduling, but I also think there's sort of a hesitance to talk about an area that's evolving, right? So it's like, okay, this is happening, we're in the middle of it, so it's not like anybody has all the answers, right? And so thanks for being bold enough to get up here and just share what you're thinking. You know, I really appreciate it because it's super, super important. And so without further ado, I'll let you introduce yourselves. And if you could just talk about who you are, what you do, and more importantly, what you love about being in the business of people.
What a well-said question. I love that. Hi, everyone. I'm Takiyah Gross-Foote. I am a Vice President of Talent Management for Kimberly-Clark. And what I love about being in the business of people is when you hear the news, it's always about the business strategy, the business impact, the business goals. But there is no business strategy without a talent strategy. If you don't have the people part, it doesn't work. And so I love a career, and I've done this my entire career, focused on how can I enable business impact through people.
Well said. Hi, I'm Cathy Manginelli. I'm the Chief Talent Officer at TriNet. I love this, the API connection that someone said in the session previous. So I've been doing this for 30 years. I will probably never do anything else. I just love being in the business of people, connecting people. And I think of myself as a sort of transformer and change agent because I also part of my remit is to lead talent acquisition, and we change people's lives. We give people a chance, and that changes their life, right? We give them a chance in a new role, new opportunity, new skill set. So every single day, I don't know, I get jazzed up when I see that, when I've changed somebody's life.
Wow, what a great thing to say. That gives me chills when you think about it. And you know, there's nothing like seeing somebody when they got a new job.
Right,
It's a cool thing. So some of you, maybe most of you saw it about 2 months ago, an article in the Harvard Business Review titled, does your company need an elder care policy? And you know, in short, a lot of this data was not extraordinarily new, but it underscores the point that today, more people in the workplace are managing complex elder care problems than are managing child care problems. And you know, we see people that they're 65 years old, people 5-year-olds in the workforce, they're on Medicare, they're Medicaid recipients, so that's hypothetically a healthcare plan for older people, but they're caring for someone who's 80, so we have all this stuff going on. So the question is, this dynamic of people managing care at the workplace, elder care at the workplace, are you seeing it? To what extent can you kind of flesh it out? And if you were experiencing it, feel free to talk about that too, if it's happening in your own life.
Absolutely, I am experiencing it and seeing it on a daily basis. And you know, for me, I didn't expect to be a caregiver so soon. My mom was relatively young. I'm from Florida originally, and she was in Florida. She became very ill during COVID. And so I had to relocate her to Georgia, and overnight I became a caregiver. But I also have lots of colleagues who are both caregivers and they have children. And they're navigating all of that. Did I mention that I'm an only child? So on top of that, not having that sibling network or community to support you in the midst of that. So yes, we're seeing more and more of it. And you know, you mentioned from that article, organizations having an elder care strategy. I really think it's still a people strategy because we see the workforce being full of individuals like myself who are balancing both. And as an organization, we have to constantly evaluate that and figure out what we need to do to support them.
Yeah, I'll jump off there. So I also was, I'm not an only child, I'm actually the youngest of 5, but I was responsible for taking care of my parents, who've now passed on, and I was traveling a ton with work, and it was a lot, right? It was a lot being that caregiver and having a really, robust, demanding career. And I'm actually thankful that TriNet in particular has all of the benefits and resources. And of course, we also extend that to our clients too, but I'll just speak from the TriNet perspective. I took down a note. Eric was talking about partnering with point of sale solutions, and he, in one of the panels, and he was talking about how there was a company that was like, no, we're not interested. Well, we're very interested. So what we do at TriNet is we partner with all of the resources, care.com and Healthcare Advocate, and we have a solution provider for wellness, and in the care.com, one of the things that you were talking about that I think I'll underscore here is it's not just for elder care, right? So I think the key is, as you're building your business, or maybe you're evolving your business, you have to know the demographic of who is in your workforce, and then you have to tailor the benefits to meet that workforce. So for us, we do have that 5 generation. I was, in prepping for today, I was just curious, go into the people database. So there are over a dozen people that are over the age of 75 working at TriNet. I did not realize that we had folks that were in that demographic, that many of them, but we have a hybrid flex workforce. We have, again, we do sabbaticals, we have FSAs, we have tons of support so that no matter whether you are, we also have, apprenticeship intern programs for those that are in college. So we really span the gamut here, and we have programs that meet all those needs, whether you're taking care of your kids or you're taking care of your parents. The flexibility to meet those needs, I think, is super, super key.
Can I jump in real quick? You said something that triggered for me the fact that when we look at the top 3 reasons an individual will join a company, one of the top reasons, usually it's number 1, is flexibility.
Yeah.
Right? It used to be salary. It used to be all about money or benefits or something else, and now it's about flexibility. And I really believe that is in response to, that shows the needs of our population.
I think culturally, there's recently been a shift that looks at inflexibility as a return to a better standard, right? So there are certain organizations that are pushing for mandatory back to work. And I just think it's really interesting that generally speaking, the desire for flexibility is because there's something else going on, right? And oftentimes it's the flexibility. Maybe do you see it as sometimes the difference between being able to enter the workforce or not, or alternatively being able to keep working or not?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just moved our center here to Atlanta, and it is our first 750 planes. In August, and it is our first foray into the return to office since COVID. So we were all remote, obviously. We were all in office, then went remote, and now we're coming back in. And we're learning a lot about how things have changed and the workforce and the workforce needs. I think COVID had a lot to do with it. And I was on with a headhunter the other day because we have some senior level roles we're sourcing, and we asked the headhunter, are you seeing C-leaders moving for jobs? Remember back in the day, C-leaders used to pick up, I'll go to St. Louis, I'll go to Kansas City, wherever, I'll move my family. Yeah, no, that's not happening. So local talent and getting local talent and continuing to cultivate that local talent will be key. But one of the things that we've learned is, I call it that flex hybrid. So we're hybrid, so you can pick 6 days a month to work from wherever. But we also have flex. So we say, because of the traffic, 10 to 3 core hours, you gotta be in the office when you're in the office, but you can flex around that to meet needs of kids or parents or what have you. We would not be able to attract talent unless we had that strategy. Like, that's just a given, table stakes.
And there have been a lot of companies that have delayed return to office. So we're hearing more about it this year that many are returning, but think about it. Some of the big organizations right here in Atlanta were back in 2022. So when we talk about, oh, return to office, they're saying, oh my goodness, we returned years ago. But I think that was a smart decision for some of those orgs because it allowed them to attract talent that they may not have gotten in the past.
Yeah. Lost my way.
Can I jump in while you're
Please, yes, yes.
While you're finding one other thing that I wanted to share too, and it's just my personal bugaboo and my personal pet peeve. So is this concept of reverse mentoring? Like it's just mentoring people, okay? Right? And so, right?
What is reverse mentoring?
Well, in concepts, it's supposed to be the older workers learning from the younger workers, but it's just workers learning from workers, right? All generations, across generations, and of course, we do that to skill the workforce too. So it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm learning from my daughter every day, who's 22. The technology stuff. What'd you put in chat today? How did you create that agent? And and then she's learning from me how to have executive presence and have different conversations at the executive level or strategic planning. And so I think when we think about our workforce, I know I spoke about the benefits to employees, but when we think about sort of this aging population, I was in a talk this morning actually with folks that are north of 55 years of age, and they want to continue working for at least 15 years, like as fractional workers. And as companies, we need to embrace that concept. We need to understand that they might not want to do the 60-hour work week grind. That's okay. So let's work with you on a job shadow, job share. Let's be creative in how we can keep the gray become the new green in many ways, right? And if you love the movie The Intern, which I do, if you haven't seen it, gotta go watch it. It's fantastic. So it's this whole concept of like, there's a lot of institutional knowledge out there at any age now where we can really be sharing and learning from each other. Just a social learning at its max. Yeah.
I know I think you guys have already asked it, but I'll come to this, see if you have any further comment. The question, my next question was going to be, do you see, especially we're across every tier, right? But even at especially at the kind of elite level, we're attracting C-suite talent, but throughout the workforce. Do you see these kinds of benefits, flexibility, in programming and benefits that are really specifically scaled around caregiving as like table stakes? Like you're going to just have to have these things to find the talent you need to grow a business.
I absolutely am seeing it, and I've been seeing it for really the last 5 to 7 years, and I think it's just becoming even more prevalent. You're seeing, employee resource groups that are focused on care, both care for your parents, care for your kids, care for your community. We're seeing more and more flexible spending accounts focused on elder care services and many, many more. I know you said you had a list that you could provide from TriNet, but I think organizations, and I know the organizations that I've been a part of, we're spending the time to figure out what else is going to be needed for this next phase.
Yeah, I'll underscore that to say that even puppy care, like I have 2 dogs, like our care.com portfolio includes care of your animals, like it's well beyond the people side, because we found that's what our demographic wanted when we went out there and assessed, right, and talked about, what do you need to be engaged and to help you be able to balance work life and all the things. So 100%, it is absolutely table stakes.
All right, let's talk about the bees. Do you know what the bees are? Do you know what the bees are? Tell them what explain the bees, please.
So I won't nerd out on you from an HR perspective, but if you ever want a nerd, just Google strategic workforce planning. But let's think about 15, 20 years ago. Most organizations were focused on 2 B's: buying talent, which means hiring talent, or building talent, which means developing that talent, doing on-the-job training for that talent. So 2 B's, and that was it. Now, if you Google, you're going to see 7 B's, 8 B's, 9 B's, and it's hard to keep up, but they're all really important. So now it's not just buying and building; it's also bot. Meaning, how do we leverage AI to automate a job and make it more, so maybe 30% of that job gets automated and now you have a 70. We have balance, we have bounce. What happens when you've automated a lot of stuff and now you gotta change that job? So I won't go through all the B's, but it is a really intriguing topic when you think about, how many generations we have. When you think about early career and how, it looks different now for college students coming into the workspace. It's an interesting when we think about borrowing talent, when we think about elders who kind of want to retire, but they kind of want to stay in the workforce. So how can we borrow them on a fractional basis and continue to keep them engaged in the workforce?
And then I'm gonna add a B that you told me at lunch, which I love, I'm stealing it. It's the boomerang bee, right? And so the baby boomers are now the bold boomers, I think, I don't know what the last adjective wasn't the last adjective, but the bold boomers that are now boomeranging, right? And so they might leave the workforce, or moms do this a lot, they might leave the workforce for a period of time, they wanna come back, or they might leave a company and go, oh, it wasn't better on the grass wasn't greener on the other side of the street, I wanna come back to this grass, right? And so that's another aspect of when we think about our talent strategy, what we're looking at. And so we were talking about the companies that do it well, they stay connected to their alumni. They stay, and even if we might not hire you, I want you as a referral, right? So you gotta make sure that talent experience or that employee experience is exceptional, because you don't know who they know or who they can introduce you to that'll help bring that workforce or help you with a client if you're out there trying to build your business. So yeah, so I'm stealing your B, I'm gonna add that to the list.
No, I love it. And it's interesting I'm glad you brought up the, keeping connected with not just your elders, but all employees that leave an organization. Because it's so important when you think about like manufacturing organizations, many of them have 2 and 3 and 4 generations working from the same family. And so it's really important to stay connected with them as they depart the organization.
Let's dig into these B's. And I want to give one that's kind of personal, but it's mainstream. This bot, a piece of it. I have recent conversations with a 30-year-old and a 60-year-old. 30-year-old happens to be my daughter, right? So you meet her and she's like super cool. She's like every 30-year-old. There's young people who are awesome. They know everything. They do things super fast. She reaches over my phone if I look right. She does that. And then just 60-year-old friends, good buddy of mine. And I have more than one example of this. Both are utterly demoralized and have left the job search process because they cannot defeat the screeners. They have the credit, they have the life experience, the work experience, and they're like, I just can't beat it. I can't. So we hate those bots, but can bots start to level that playing field and help, whether it's teaching or automating processes, to give people a better feeling of a better chance? Because this feeling of hopelessness in the workforce is very common.
I have a point of view on that, and it might not be a popular opinion, but we're at the beginning. It feels like this stuff has been around for a while, but I believe that bots have the power in the near future to actually take bias out of the process and make it easier to find talent, because that bot is not focused on if they like you or not. They're more focused on, do you have the skills and experience to do this job? It's just not there yet, but it's close. So I'd say maybe a year from now, I expect, and this is where we're predicting, and you can come back next year and say, Takiyah, you were wrong. But I predict that our bots that attract talent are gonna get better, and we're gonna find them, so the example that you gave, those, if they find the right role, if they're applying for the right role, that they have the right skills and experiences for it, I believe they're gonna have a better candidate experience.
So we have fully leaned in to this AI thing. You might have been in the session earlier with my CIO, Jeff Hayward, who's brilliant in the space, by the way. Our entire company launched about a year and a half ago something called AI Forward, where we are a co-pilot house, we're all using it, we're all with governance, obviously. There's a whole governance structure around it to use it responsibly. What we do use it for sourcing, selection, evaluation. The bot challenge is the bot to bot, okay? So,
Yeah, go
not the
ahead.
back to back, but the bot to bot, which is where, like my daughter, again, senior in college, she developed her resume using, ChatGPT, which is what she's advised to do by every career center. So you've got a bot then interacting with a bot system, right? And so that's where it's starting to get confusing, because how do you make yourself personalized, right, through ChatGPT, that the bot then picks it up, right, through because we use BrightHire, we use Eightfold and a lot of different other AI recruitment tools that do take out the bias. So it actually screens out any bioidentical markers, I guess I would say it that way. I don't know the technical term, but through the process, and you don't actually, when you finally meet with the person, it's, when you're actually having the interview. So it is challenging, and I'm on campus a lot right now since I moved to Atlanta, talking with a lot of students about, how do I just get that? How do I get that job? How do I get through? At the end of the day, it's the wave of where companies are going. I do think the technology is there to help with the sourcing, the selection, and we have a BrightHire tool. It's great with evaluating, using a great rubric. It's so much easier for a hiring manager. They write the job descriptions, everything. But at the end of the day, and I'm going to circle back to the original question, which is why do I love what I do? It's all about people connecting with people. So our philosophy in AI Forward or any of the AI tools that we're using is, and Jeff said it earlier, it's not to replace human, it is to upskill human to do a different set of skills required. So we just philosophically believe humans always going to be in the loop. And so at the end of the day, the best way to find a job still, no matter what your age is who's in your network. Who do you know? Who can sponsor you? Who can advocate for you? Who can say, hey, Jeff, I got this great person I want you to meet. Let me connect you. And that's still going to be forevermore the best way to get a job, find a job, and share a job.
And I don't think AI will replace that.
No.
All right, we had some other B's. Let's go.
Okay.
What about, was interesting to me. Let's talk a little bit about bounce.
Okay.
Redeploying, yes. Is that what bounce is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's redeploying
It
talent.
seems to me that's on topic of aging.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting one because when we talk about AI, and even talking about it earlier today in the early session, there's this talk about, hey, well, it's not going to take away all the jobs. It's going to, optimize. It's going to maybe require replacement of some resources, right? But when we think about bounce, which is redeployment, it could be as simple as we've automated this role in the bot phase, and now 30 to 40% of it is automated. We now have the rest of this role. How do we redeploy this in the organization? It could be as simple as that. And what other skills do we need to pair with it? What do we need to provide that talent to make it optimal in the workflow? So sometimes when people hear bounce, they think very negatively. They think, oh, this is the end of my job. But this is why upskilling is such an important part of this phase of what we're in. One last point on that is, Gartner is predicting that AI is going to create more jobs than it will remove in the next 5 years. And so if that is the case, this part of the workforce planning is going to be even more important.
Yeah, we actually, TriNet just released our 2025 workforce report of the year. I think it was like yesterday or 2 days ago, with statistics much like that and predictions. So take a look at that. But I agree, and I don't think it's a bad thing to be an exporter of talent. I think sometimes people think that's a dirty word, like I just need to import. But you know what? If you're exporting and you create that pool, it cycles and it supports, right, each other. And if that role or that person or that timing isn't right for the circumstance, let's support them and figure something out better for them. So that's where the mentoring, like having the support system in the way that you, like your learning strategy or your talent strategy, having that support system, whether it's mentoring, job shadowing, we do job rotations, we have apprenticeships that, Jeff talked about. You gotta have the other things because, it's so funny. I think a lot of, talent professions in the circles that we're in, upskilling, it's like the new, I don't know, strategy word or something. And sometimes people are tired. Sometimes they actually don't want to take the time to upskill. I know I talk to a lot of my, in my generation and north of my generations, and they're like, I just don't know if I want to learn something new, to be honest. Like, I'm just tired. And you know what I mean? And that's totally okay. And so I think, upskilling is not the only way is my point. Like, so if you really don't want to spend the energy learning, I don't know, whatever, this and that and the other, like, so then what do you know that we can then redeploy, or how can you mentor someone else, or how can you help contribute in the organization a different way? So it just takes intention, it really does, and good conversations and good support.
And I wouldn't discount transferable skills, because many of us may have worked in our lane for many, many years, and that's all we've done, and we think this is all we're going to do. And there's an opportunity, even with the bounce strategy, to transfer to another function within your same organization. So as I mentioned earlier, it's not just about bouncing out of the organization, it's bouncing into something new.
What about block? Is that a B?
Well, yeah, it can be, with succession.
With succession?
With succession, yeah. We have blockers. I don't like them, no.
Explain.
Yeah, I mean, there are people that, so there's this new concept I was reading, I don't remember what article, about corporate hugging. Have y'all heard of this concept? Oh, yeah. I thought it was street hugging, but it's not. So corporate hugging is where you stay tight and you hug on, even though you're disengaged because you're either too exhausted to go to the next thing. You don't want to take the time and the energy of the bot versus the bot sort of recruitment process. And you're kind of nervous about what's out there. You don't maybe have an updated skill set. Maybe you only are trained in one particular thing specific to your company. So there's a whole host of reasons, but there is a little bit of an epidemic that's starting to happen over the last year or two. And I'm scared that it's going to continue, to be honest, where people are corporate hugging, they're staying, but they're disengaged. That's a vandal. That's like the worst type of employee that you want, right? Someone that is kind of just phoning it in and not really supporting the business strategy. They're doing their job, and that's okay. But, and so they're blocking. They're blocking folks that might be more enthusiastic or might have a better skill set or really want to get into whatever that role is. And so I know we both run succession strategies, and that's a key conversation in our succession conversations with leaders is let's look at them, and we know who they are. They're not very, they try to be conspicuous, but they're not. So we have to, that's where you gotta have conversations to talk about the bounce or the redeployment, and if they are blocking, especially if it's a critical role. So you've got the person, but then you have your role that you have to evaluate as well to say, you definitely don't want a blocker in a critical role. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you have to add that.
Absolutely. I was going to say the same thing about blockers, because oftentimes a blocker is someone that's just been in that critical role for a very long time, and they're not going to go any further. They're not going to go up to the next level, but they have a whole bench underneath them that need that opportunity. They need to get their chance at that role, right? And so how you redeploy the blocker in a way that can help the organization and give the bench an opportunity to grow is really important.
You ever heard of a special project role? Put them in names.
Happens a lot.
What's that?
That's where you need
That's like
them.
the Island of Misfit Toys.
Yeah, well, you need them. You need them, but you don't want them in that critical role. So you give them something that's really going to re-engage them differently,
Okay.
but use their skills, but so that they're not blocking maybe the succession talent that really you need in that role. It's a bit of a game of chess when you're moving the talent pieces around the board.
This is a question I didn't put in our questions, but what the heck? So in high turnover businesses, and maybe you support them. How many clients do you think this TriNet have?
Well, I know we have over 300,000 WSEs, so
Okay.
probably 200-300 clients. I don't know, sales guys in the back, you might know.
I mean,
Yeah.
very many at one.
Yeah.
Right. So whether it's different roles in your business or different businesses in your client roster, some of those are very high turnover, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Where do you see potentially AI coming in or other technology solutions? I'll color this question. Call out one of the highest turnover businesses in the world. Somebody.
Air traffic control.
Senior living, skilled nursing, right? Right. Senior living, skilled nursing is that's rough go. Right. It's really common to have somebody talk to you casually, like they were talking about, waffles. They're like, yeah, our turnover is 100%. So in that sector, skilled nursing, the whole post-acute care space and senior living, what we hear frequently is the number two reasons that they lose people early is that it wasn't a good fit, and number two is that they felt that they were not adequately supported in the role. So here I am alone in the room. I have to do something that I wasn't prepared to do, and I don't know how to do, and I can't call for help. And I'll just call it. So, do you see technology being able to? First of all, you agree that's a problem. Do you see it? And can technology help? Can we do better matching? And I want to just say one thing. I was talking about this with somebody a couple days ago, and they made a comment that the matching problem shouldn't be a problem because the person applying for the job should have known that what the job was they were applying for, right? Like what? And specific example was you're applying to be a caregiver in a senior living community. You should know what that's all about. It shouldn't be a surprise. So that's not a problem. We'll factor that one out. Well, that's not true, is it? Anyway, so that's having a good match to begin with and supporting this employee, especially early.
I think those are two of the top reasons why we call them early leavers, why they leave organizations earlier. It's culture. They didn't see themselves in the culture. They didn't see them being a good fit in that culture. And they don't feel like they can be successful in their role. And if those two things are prevalent, you're gonna have turnover. But what organizations must do to shift that is one, help future candidates understand the experience before they get there. And so part of that happens in the pre-onboarding and the pre-hiring all the way into the onboarding. Because if they are going to leave, if they do find it's not going to be a good fit, let's find it early. So a friend of mine was interviewing for a role with a company that does dialysis. And during the interview process, they required her to spend time in clinic, shadowing and observing. This is during the interview process. So, right? And so I think that's so important because you'll be able to, as a candidate, imagine, can I see myself doing this job in this environment? Let me talk to other nurses that are doing this job currently and see if this is something that I can do or feel confident doing in the future.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So, and I think that's been a benefit of the return to work, right? Because people can experience the culture differently, right, when they're interacting like this. So what we do at TriNet is we actually do tours. As they're interviewing, yes, they have to, like if you're interviewing for somebody on my team, what's a table stake skill? You have to be able to facilitate, you have to be able to, so we put them through case studies. We actually use the predictive index. I don't know if that applies to y'all's community, but it's a great marker for, and it's actually one of the only, besides Hogan, one of the only validated tools that you can use as a data point, right, legally, so just footnote there. So be careful when you're using assessments and hiring. Make sure that there's other components there for making that employment decision so you don't get any hot water there. But so we use predictive index. Hogan's another one, but that's more sophisticated. We use that at the executive, which will profile someone. And then we have a cultural profile that we use. So we have a leadership profile, we have our core values, and then we use all of that through the actual evaluation process before they even enter the door, to your point, with the onboarding. And then, I'm not in your industry, I'm not in the healthcare industry, but from family members and folks that are in my circle that are, one of the things that I'm curious about is I almost feel like there is this view that nurses and folks that work in these facilities is just a commoditized thing. Like it's just take off your name, put another name on the resume, and just put me through the door, and it is not that. And I think what's happening, again, from the outside looking in, I don't know if y'all would agree with me or not, it feels to me that the industry needs to shift that mindset, as opposed to looking at these workers as sort of this commoditized sort of skill set and not unique and not specific, because I think that's where you're getting culture clash. And I love when somebody says, oh, it wasn't a culture fit. Well, that's really just an excuse for like 1,000 other things. When we do our exit surveys, pay being one of them, because if it is commoditized, then they can go across the street and make 10 cents more or $50 more, whatever, if they want to be a traveling nurse or what have you. So you got to compete on a lot of different levels. So I think the things I would add to your sort of to-do list, you have to know yourself. You have to know your organization. And I find even when I'm helping managers write their job descriptions, they don't really even know themselves or know what the job is. And I'm like, okay, you gotta help me here. Like, if you don't know it, how am I supposed to recruit for it? So you gotta know what you're looking for, and then you gotta know how to find it, right? And that's through all these different tools that hopefully your talent organization or TriNet can help you with putting together a nice process.
Yeah. And we know what matters and we know what things work because there are very low turnover organizations in very high turnover industries.
Right.
So somebody out there is figuring
Figuring
out
it out, yeah.